Hey guys, welcome back to Mythix. It has been a little bit. Holidays have been a little busy. Christmas has been a little busy. Hope you guys are doing well. So today I just wanted to talk about tanking in World of Warcraft, Vanilla and Classic. I've seen a lot from our community, I've seen a lot from the Classic community complaining about tanks being less available. It's really funny because in both World of Warcraft Classic and Vanilla, logically, it would make more sense that in a 20-year-old game, you would see people being more comfortable taking on the role of tank, not the opposite. Given that the mechanics are more widely known the older the game gets, and the benefits of becoming a tank guarantees you'll have more access to better loot or even unique loot in dungeons. So why are people choosing not to tank? Well, speaking from personal experience, I think most of it just comes down to human elements and behavior in other groups that cause tanks to feel like it's just not worth it more than anything else. I'm going to cover a couple of personal experiences I've had while tanking that I think are causing tanks to become more extinct. And please let me know if you have any ideas in the comments or if you think maybe I'm on the wrong track. All right, so a lot of these are opinion-based. These are my opinion. This is my assessment in tanking dungeons, and this is my first-hand recounting, and some of it's anecdotal, a lot of it's conversational that I've gathered with people. But the first reason why I think tanks are choosing not to tank as much anymore is because DPS immediately start damaging targets, usually with area of effect attacks, before I can even generate threat or before I can even pull back to a safe area. Sometimes both of these at the same time. Many times in World of Warcraft, I will pull packs back to protect the group so that mobs don't run away and grab other mobs that might wipe the group. I also turn around and face the opposite direction so the mobs don't run towards other monsters, but I also pull back so that patrols won't engage my party or attack my healer when he's unsuspecting, just to avoid any kind of chaos that might make us perform less efficiently, right? And 99% of the time, some DPS will start damaging a target way before I pull back, even if I've told them before what I'm doing, and they will attack the target not at the location where we need to be pulled back to. They just don't seem to really care. So my example for this is usually warriors will battle charge and fight a target as soon as I pull it. Way over where the mob was, that's where they're going to battle charge to. So now it screws up my pulls, and many times, even after communicating ahead of time, it becomes frustrating, right? I'm going to use the pullback strategy for every pull, so it doesn't make sense if they listen to it sometimes and then other times they don't. It's almost like they get bored with it or something. But what it does is it causes you to have to taunt the target, waste your taunt, on top of trying to maintain threat for all the targets on the table, right? It's frustrating, it's annoying. It gives you an extra responsibility of people. Tanking becomes this game of like babysitting inattentive DPS who seem to not be paying attention, even though you do this mechanic for 100% of your pulls. The DPS still mess it up for you. So, I mean, if I had to assess what was happening here psychologically, I would say, maybe people want to do a good job as a DPS and start pumping that damage immediately. They want to start being on the charts. They don't want to be on the bottom. Maybe they just don't care. They're just not invested. I'm going to cover some more reasons in this video, but I think most players have been playing games their whole lives, and not all of that gaming has been on an MMO like World of Warcraft. So I think the psychology of the audience has shifted, and 20 years ago I think players might have been gratified by the success of completing a dungeon or completing a pull and surviving through dungeons and getting the loot. I think that might have been gratifying. It was a little bit of a slower pace on the reward, but now I think players are looking for that endorphin generation from seeing big numbers each and every time they enter combat. So I think immersion and drawn-out gratification has been replaced with more immediate gratification in a sense. All right, the second reason why I think people aren't tanking. This kind of continues off my last point. I just wanted to elaborate more on it here. It's the uncommunicated responsibilities that are also linked in with tanking make it less desirable for people to want to play. What I mean by this is when I'm getting ready to queue for a dungeon, my mind immediately goes back to the last dungeon experience I just had before this one. And both myself and the players who choose to DPS have the same issue, right? We're coming home from work, we're tired, we just want to relax. Dungeons sound fun, but when I think about the added responsibility of trying to manage all the people in the group who do not want to work as a team, and that's the main part, it's just people who don't want to work as a team, it doesn't sound fun or appealing to me. I already know that as soon as I get into a dungeon, I have to communicate the expectations, and most likely players probably just won't care because, they're tired from work too. So the polls are going to get messed up. It's going to be again, people not working together, right? So the responsibility of tanking is one thing, and that's fine, but the responsibility of other people makes it less desirable, I think. And why do I think it's happening? Maybe many players have an expectation of the dungeon going as quickly as possible. There's a palpable pressure that I feel with other players to reach the endgame content. The current dungeon is just an obstacle and a delay for them reaching 60, right? Many of us have been in a dungeon thousands of times. We've seen it all. Let's just get the gear, let's get the XP so we can get out of here and be one step closer to endgame. That's maybe one reason why I think this is happening. I'm not really sure. But I think the human element here is more of the focus. That's why people are choosing not to tank. The third reason why I think people are choosing not to tank, the rewards do not outweigh the responsibility. Why would a tank want to group with a bunch of DPS when no one works as a team and have the added communication and the added effort when you could just go complete quests and grind instead and get rewarded with more XP per hour? I'm saying it in a general sense. This is what I think most tanks feel like. I'm trying to relate and understand why they're feeling that way. But ultimately, as a tank, I think we usually just do dungeons as long as it takes to get the gear we need. And then we usually will dip out after that and do the rest of our grinding outside of the group experience, which is sad because it's an MMO. We should be grouping together. And grouping together used to be the draw, used to be the fun and exciting. And I think the slower pace of the MMO is in direct opposition to the psychology of a lot of the average players today. So sometimes you'll find players that are kind of an equal mind as you, especially if you're doing things with a guild run. But I think the majority of tanks just don't think it's worth it. The rewards are better if you just grind. Fourth reason why I think tanks are not tanking. The social contract. The DPS are never going to see you again. Why would they be invested in working as a team with you? In probably 100 dungeons or so that I've done in my current vanilla playthrough on Turtle WoW, well, vanilla plus because it's Turtle WoW, I don't think I've seen a single DPS in a group twice. I don't think I've ever seen the same guy twice, which is a testament to the population on the server. That's fantastic that they've achieved that on the server with their hard work. But unless I've added somebody to my friends list, I've never seen them in a dungeon queue more than once. Other DPS are obviously aware of this, and the lack of reputation when you re-queue for a dungeon, and you can just re-queue even if you behave, sometimes in toxic manners or whatever, in both. This applies to tanks as well. This applies to healers as well. But I think there's less of a social contract in play for people. They're not really incentivized, even if they do something really annoying or if they wipe the group on purpose or if they try to steal things. You may have a reputation if people go out of their way to communicate that with guilds and other discords, but the social contract, I think everyone knows when they go in, and that makes it kind of less desirable as well, because tanks know this when they're approaching the dungeon and they're like, is it worth it? I don't know. The fifth reason why I think people are tanking less, and this is Turtle WoW specific, so this doesn't really apply to everyone who's playing the 20-year-old version of WoW that was re-released by Blizzard. If you guys are playing that, I feel sorry for you. Please come over to Turtle WoW and have some fun. But Turtle WoW has recently updated patch 1.17.2, and as a result of the update, player damage has become kind of insane. Okay, the game has become a little bit easier, and I think they're still ironing out the kinks. I hope they bring some of that classic challenge back. but DPS classes are pushing too much damage in both raids and dungeons, and it makes tanking a chaotic nightmare. Lower and upper Blackrock, Spire, Skolo, Stratholm, they've always been a little bit of a chaotic mess, but when you add in peaks of just huge peaks on the threat meter from just insane crits or Wind Fury bursts from shamans, now mages have that arcane rupture, hunters are just making threat go everywhere, and they do not know what disengage is. It means that I think tanking is kind of an ordeal now. It's becoming more of a mess. And to be honest, tanking for me has been less fun than it's ever been for me in 20 years as a result. And I think it's really fun to DPS. But as a healer or as a tank, we're pretty much done with content as soon as we started. It's just chaos, So to summarize what's happening with tanks and why I think tanks are choosing not to wear the mantle, I think it's the social elements that are not equally distributed amongst the group members, right? When a tank comes in, they're wearing more of a social burden than I think all the other members, because they have to communicate and coordinate a lot of what's happening in dungeons and raids. And that makes it less desirable, especially over time when there's less commitment from the DPS. What is the solution, though? And this is kind of where I want to finish the subject is, where do we go? What's the answer? It's a 20-year-old game. It wasn't meant to sit like this for all of its 20 years. It was meant to be innovated upon. And the good news is we've seen with a lot of modern games a solution. We've seen an innovation. We have an answer, I think, to fix the social designs in dungeons. And I think that's what needs to be addressed in Classic, in vanilla World of Warcraft, is the social element isn't really accounted for as much. What do I mean by this? Final Fantasy has a fantastic system that allows you to vote at the end of dungeons on who were the best players. You can't vote for yourself. You have to vote for somebody else to acknowledge what they did effectively. I think this is a fantastic idea, and I think Blizzard does too, because they've implemented this system with Overwatch. The play of the game system is the same idea, and now Marvel Rivals has taken that idea, and these games perform incredibly well because they're acknowledging the social dynamics that come with the MMO. We need to do that, I think, to create not only a social contract, but to balance out the social responsibilities off of just the tanks. I think that would incentivize them to play more. And on top of that, I think we're going to have more investment from all players when they join a group if they know they're going to be rewarded with a potential badge. So what do I think we should do? What do I think this should look like? I think what it looks like is when you complete a dungeon, you get a screen that looks like a play of the game and it highlights players for what they've done in the dungeon. This is going to require some tracking. This is going to require some stat tracking to be implemented of some sort in the dungeons. If a player crowd controls incredibly effectively, there should be a vote to give this guy a merit or a badge of some sort that leads to a title after a certain amount of accomplishments. Has he been an effective crowd controller for 100 dungeons? Bam, you get this cool title and maybe even a potential cosmetic reward from somebody, kind of like how the faction rewards work. I think that should kind of apply to players who are performing effectively like this. Be cool if they had maybe a cape or some sort of unique identifier that was still immersive and look like what it should look like in a game, and not a unicorn or some crazy stupid stuff like that. I don't think we should incentivize DPS any more than we already have, because I believe when we incentivize DPS, you kind of get the same uncohesive kind of mentality in gameplay. It's more of a selfish mentality, right? You're trying to individually parse as high as you can, and the rest of the group can kind of just deal with it. I don't think that's good for teamwork. I think we need to recognize things like effective healers or knowledgeable tanks, or tanks that never let the group die even once. If nobody dies, well, that's probably a healer merit. We'll have to maybe vote on it and decide as a team what kind of badges, what kind of merits, what kind of achievements players should be getting in dungeons that would help social investment. But that's what I like to talk about. I guess that's one of my biggest questions. What do you think in the comments below should be badges? What do you think should be rewards for like a play of the game or a merit-based system in vanilla or classic World of Warcraft? What do you think players should be rewarded with? Even as far as like what should the titles sound like Life Mender for a healer that performs well? Let me know what you guys think. But anyways, I just want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you guys for helping contribute to the growth of vanilla and classic World of Warcraft, for being a part of this community. I think the end goal is to create more teamwork and cohesion and working together and better social experiences. This is the greatest edition of World of Warcraft. So I'd love to see any innovation, any addition that we could make to help it become better, to help our tanks want to tank more, you know, to make, because it'll make queues go faster, it'll make quality of life better for a lot of people. And that's really what I'm trying to focus on with this, is ideas and strategies and tools to make it better for people using examples we already know. So thanks for kind of letting me go on a tangent today. Let me kind of delve into this today. I'm excited to hear what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video.